So, today we continue with Module 2, and the topic for today's lecture will be urbanization and migration. This lecture explores the twin process of urbanization and migration, which have been among the most powerful forces shaping societies in this modern era. We will discuss how urbanization transforms economies, cultures, and living conditions, and how migration fuels and is shaped by these changes. The lecture will situate India's experience within both global and historical contexts. We will examine sociological theories that explain why people migrate, how cities evolve, and what challenges emerge because of this migration. Importantly, we will connect these dynamics to public health and social work. The aim is to understand not only the numbers but also the lived experiences of individuals and families and their social well being. Urbanization is one of the defining trends of the 21st century, with more than half of the world's population now living in cities. Asia and Africa, in particular, are experiencing rapid urban growth due to both natural increase and migration. Migration from rural to urban areas is a major driver as people seek jobs, education, and better living conditions. Cities often symbolize opportunity, innovation, and modernity, but they also highlight inequality, overcrowding, and exclusion. Urbanization shapes the development agenda globally, influencing employment, health, infrastructure, and governance. Understanding these patterns helps us to see why urbanization and migration are central to both policy and academic debates as of today. Urbanization in India has a long history, beginning with ancient centers like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and Varanasi. Under colonial rule, cities like Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras expanded as centers of trade administration. So these names were then they were called as these names. After independence, industrialization and state led planning shaped new towns and cities, such as Bhilai and Chandigarh. The 1990s economic reforms accelerated urban expansion, leading to increased migration and rise of service sector hubs like Bengaluru. Today, India faces a unique phase characterized by megacities with over 10 million people and peri-urban sprawl that blurs rural urban boundaries and divide. This historical trajectory underscores how cities mirror India's political, economic, and cultural shifts. The drivers of urbanization are multifaceted, but economic opportunities stand at the forefront. Cities attract people with jobs in manufacturing services and the informal economy. Educational institutions and healthcare facilities further strengthen their pull. Urban areas offer infrastructure such as transportation, electricity, and communication that support modern living. Social aspirations, particularly the desire for mobility, improve status, motivate rural families to migrate. Government policies, including special economic zones and urban development missions, also play a role. Together, these drivers explain why cities continue to grow despite congestion and challenges, reflecting both push factors from rural areas and pull factors from urban spaces. Migration in India reveals different patterns. Rural urban migration dominates, driven by employment opportunities in construction, manufacturing, and services. Seasonal and circular migration is also widespread, with laborers moving temporarily for agriculture or industrial work or construction work and return home after the project is over. Interstate migration flows include movement from poorer states such as Bihar and Uttar Pradesh to more prosperous states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Delhi. International migration is another significant trend, especially domestic service. International migration is another significant trend, especially to the Gulf countries, where millions of Indians work in construction, domestic service, and other sectors. Gender also shapes migration, with men migrating for work, but women migrate for marriage or family reasons. Functionalist theory views urbanization as a natural and beneficial process that supports social order. Cities are seen as centers of efficiency where labor specialization drives economic growth. Migration fills the labor needs of expanding urban economics, ensuring that industries and services function smoothly. From this perspective, urbanization promotes modernization, literacy, and cultural progress. Social institutes such as education, healthcare, and family structures adapt to meet the demands of urban life. Functionalists emphasize that migration, despite its challenges, integrates individuals into society by aligning their roles with broader economic and social systems. This perspective highlights stability, adaptation, and development. Conflict theory offers a contrasting perspective, emphasizing that urbanization deepens inequalities. Rapid migration often produces exploitation, with migrants concentrated in insecure and poorly paid jobs. Housing shortages force many into slums and informal settlements with inadequate services. Cities become areas of contestation where elites benefit from urban growth while the poor struggle for their survival. Unequal access to infrastructure, education, and healthcare perpetuates structural inequalities. Conflict theory argues that urbanization reflects capitalist priorities, privileging profit and power over equity. This perspective helps us critically examine the uneven benefits and costs of urban growth in India and beyond. A feminist perspective sheds light on the gender dimensions of migration and urbanization. Women often migrate under different circumstances than men, including marriage migration, which remains widespread in India. Those entering labor markets in cities frequently face vulnerabilities such as exploitation, harassment, and unequal wages. Migrating women juggle reproduction, their responsibilities with economic contributions, often with little institutional support. Yet, migration can also be empowering, offering autonomy, income, and exposure to newer environments. Intersectionality is crucial as caste, class, and religion shape women's experiences differently. A feminist lens thus broadens our understanding of how urbanization affects families and individuals in gendered ways. Migration is rarely a solo choice. Families and friends shape it at every step. Older migrants pass along tips about routes, costs, documents, and self employers. Because newcomers trust these, older migrants pass along tips about routes, costs, documents, and safe employers. Because newcomers trust these contacts, they face less risk of fraud and exploitation. Networks also lower startup costs by sharing rooms, lending money, and arranging transport. Migrant clusters in cities of one lane for workers from village, another from a nearby district grow from these ties. Such clusters help people find jobs quickly and learn city rules, languages, and work routines. Remittance flow back through the same networks, paying for food, school fees, or house repairs, and keeping obligations alive. Over time, a migration culture forms. Children see relatives leave, so leaving becomes normal and expected. Chain migration follows. One person goes first, then siblings, cousins, neighbors, even in laws. Women migrate too, often via kin who secure safer domestic or service work. Networks can open or restrict these paths. Phones, WhatsApp groups, and social media now extend these networks, speeding information and alerts about jobs or rates. Networks are not perfect. They can trap migrants in low paid niches, including outsiders, or spread bad information. Still, they explain why some regions become strong sending areas. Example Kerala to Gulf, Bihar to Delhi, while others do not. For policy, working with networks, thorough trusted intermediaries, community help desks, and portable social benefits can make migration safer and more productive. The push pull framework is one of the earliest explanations of migration. Push factors such as poverty, unemployment, and lack of services in rural areas compel people to leave. Pull factors such as jobs, education, and better amenities in urban centers attract them. This theory effectively explains rural urban flows in India and globally. It emphasizes that migration is often voluntary and based on rational choices. However, critics argue that the model is oversimplified as it underplays structural constraints, gender, and social networks. Despite its limitations, the push pull framework remains a useful starting point for understanding migration decisions. The new classical economic theory posits that migration is largely driven by wage differential between the regions. Migrants move from areas of low wages to areas of higher wages seeking better livelihoods. At a macro level, this process is seen to reduce inequalities in labor markets. At the micro level, individuals weigh costs and benefits of migration before making decisions. In India, internal migration reflects these dynamics, though the prevalence of informal and insecure labor complicates. Dual labor market theory says city jobs are split into two tracks. The primary formal track has stable contracts, better wages, benefits, and chances to move up. The secondary informal track has daily wages, no contracts, little training, and high risk of being fired. Most rural to urban migrants in India enter in this secondary track because employers want cheap and flexible labor. They build roads and metros, carry bricks on construction sites, cook and clean as domestic workers, stitch garments in workshops, and sell food on the streets. Recruitment often happens through contractors and subcontractors, which keeps workers invisible and lowers accountability. Because jobs are informal, migrants lack paid leaves or ESI or provident funds or injury insurance, any maternity benefits or grievance systems. Language barriers, lack of documents, and discrimination by caste, gender, and region make moving into the formal track very hard. Women migrants are concentrated in domestic work and home based piecework, which is lowly paid and unprotected but essential to urban life. The gig economy looks modern but usually reproduces the secondary market. Workers bear costs and risks while platforms control pay. This dual economy lets shiny malls and tech parks thrive alongside slums and crowded dormitories where workers live without secure services. Shocks like pandemics, heat waves, or eviction drives hit the secondary market first, exposing how cities depend on but fail to protect the migrant labor. To narrow the split, policies can ensure portable social security, enforce standard contracts along the supply chains, register contractors, and make welfare entitlements mobile across trades. Raising minimum wages, investing in skill ladders, expanding rental housing in creche, and recognizing street vendors and domestic workers in law can also help migrants move towards dignity and stability. Now, world systems theory highlights how migration is structured by global inequalities. It explains flows from less developed peripheral areas to more developed core regions. Colonial histories shape these patterns, and in India, rural urban migration mirrors these internal hierarchies. Global migration from India to the Gulf states, the US, and the UK exemplifies this logic. Migrants often fill labor shortages in wealthier economies, while remittances tie them back to home communities. Now, some positive consequences of urbanization. It brings many good things when it is planned well. It boosts the economy by clustering firms and workers, which raises productivity and wages. Cities spark innovation because people, ideas, and services are close together and can collaborate quickly. They offer better access to schools, colleges, and training so skills grow faster. Hospitals and clinics are nearer, so more people get timely care and life saving services. Public services like water, sanitation, electricity, waste collection are cheaper to deliver per person in dense areas. Diverse communities live side by side, which encourages cultural exchange, new foods, arts, and networks. Even festivals. Urban jobs support entrepreneurship, small shops, startups, and gig work can all find customers and networks. Women, youth, and marginalized groups often gain more freedom, mobility, and access to work and education. Transport systems connect people to jobs and markets, cutting travel time and opening new opportunities. Digital networks are stronger in cities, helping e governance, online learning, and telemedicine. Green benefits are possible too. Apartments use less land and energy per person, and mass transit reduces emissions. Public spaces like parks, libraries, community centers create social life, recreation, and mental health benefits. Cities also become hub for disaster response and social protection, making it easier to support people in crisis. Urbanization has downsides when growth is too fast or poorly planned. Crowded slums appear with weak housing, shared toilets, and little clean water. Jobs do not keep up with people arriving, so many are unemployed or stuck in lowly paid jobs, insecure work. Roads, buses, and trains get overloaded, causing long commutes and traffic jams. Air and noise pollution rises. Waste pileups, rivers become polluted, and lakes get contaminated. Heat island form as trees and open land is replaced by concrete. Rent and land prices shoot up, pushing poor families into cities' edge. Basic services like schools, clinics, electricity, and water struggle to meet their demands. Crime and gender based harassment can increase where areas are poorly lit or policed. New migrants often face discrimination, language barriers, and a weak social support. Informal workers lack legal protections, social security, and safe workplaces. Historic neighborhoods and cultural spaces can be demolished or gentrified, displacing residents. Disaster risk grows. Flood hits harder where drains are blocked and wetlands are gone. If cities ignore planning and equity, Inequalities widen and social tensions rise. Urbanization has a lot of health implication. It changes the health picture of a city in big ways. Non communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and cancers rise with desk jobs, cheap fast food, and less physical activity. At the same time, infections don't disappear. TB, dengue, diarrheal diseases, and respiratory infections remain common in crowded, poorly ventilated, poorly serviced settlements. Air pollution from traffic and industry damages lungs and hearts and shortens lives. Unsafe water, open drains, and weak waste management spread diseases like cholera, typhoid, and other gut infections. Heat waves and flooding, made worse by climate change and loss of green space, triggers heat strokes, injuries, and outbreaks. Road traffic crashes, workplace risks for construction and factory workers, and gender based violence are major urban hazards. Mental health problems grow with stress, noise, long commutes, social isolation, and insecure jobs and housing. Access to care is unequal. Rich neighborhoods have hospitals and specialists. Slums and migrant communities face long wait times, fees, and stigma. Good urban health policy must be inclusive. Clean water and sanitation for all. Strong primary care close to where people live and affordable medicines for those who need them the most. Cities should cut pollution, expand green spaces, and safe walking or cycling, and roads enforce road safety and regulate food and tobacco. Public health surveillance needs to track both non communicable diseases and communicable diseases, including outbreaks, with quick emergency responses. Partnering with, Partnering with community health workers, NGOs, and local leaders helps reach informal settlements and migrants so no one is left out, and there is equity in distribution of services from the government. Migration reshapes family structures in profound ways. Families are often separated when men migrate for work, leaving women to manage households. In urban areas, nuclear households dominate. Manage, sorry, In urban areas, nuclear households dominate, altering kinship patterns. Children and the elderly in the rural areas may face neglected or reduced support when key members migrate. In some cases, women become de facto heads of the households, managing finances and responsibilities. Gender roles shift significantly with implications for empowerment and dependency. Migration affects education in complex ways. On positive side, cities offer access to better schools and educational facilities. However, migrant children face barriers including affordability, discrimination, and cultural adaptation challenges. Language differences can further marginalize them. Many migrant children drop out due to frequent mobility and poverty related pressures. To address these issues, inclusive education policies, bridge schools, and support programs are ensuring for success of education of these children. Migration strongly shapes employment dynamics. While it provides opportunities in diverse sectors such as construction, domestic work, and services, migrants are often concentrated in insecure, poorly paid jobs. The informal economy absorbs most migrants, offering work without stability or rights. Skill mismatches exacerbate without stability or rights. Unemployment with educated migrants unable to find mismatches exacerbate underemployment. With educated migrants unable to find suitable jobs, policy interventions, including labor protections and skill development programs, are vital to improve migrants' status. Urban governance is crucial to managing migration and urbanization. Rapid city growth strains governance systems, creating policy gaps in integrating migrants. Informal workers' rights are often neglected, leaving them vulnerable. Municipal bodies face challenges in planning and delivering services to heterogeneous populations. NGOs often step in to fill these gaps, providing advocacy and services. Now, effective governance to solve these problems must include participatory models where migrants and marginalized groups have their say in policy and planning. Urbanization significantly impacts the environment. Cities face increasing levels of air and water pollution from industries, vehicles, and untreated waste. Expansion often leads to deforestation, loss of biodiversity, shrinks the green cover, and a jungle of concrete is formed. The urban poor, especially in informal settlements, are most vulnerable to emergencies such as floods, heat waves, and climate change. Urban heat islands intensify health risks in densely populated areas. Sustainable planning that integrates green infrastructure and mitigates these concrete jungles is very essential for decreasing the environmental impact, the negative impact of urbanization. Migration contributes to acute housing challenges. Affordable housing is far below demand, pushing many migrants into slums and informal settlements. Insecure tenure makes them vulnerable to eviction, while their living conditions are pathetic. There is no proper sanitation, water supply, or waste disposal. Lack of basic services, this deepens inequalities and makes them prone to health crisis. Housing policies often fail to address these realities with benefits captured by the middle classes rather than the migrants. There should be inclusive housing strategies which must prioritize these slum dwellers and the people who are living in such informal settlements. The urban informal economy is a major employer of migrants in India. Migrants dominate sectors such as street vending, domestic work, and construction work. Despite this critical role, they lack protection and benefits or any recognition. Informal workers contribute to urban resilience by sustaining food supply, services, and housing, yet they remain invisible in policy making, facing harassment and insecurity. Urbanization reshapes, but does not eliminate stratification. Caste and class divides persist in housing, employment, and social interactions. Migrants often face discrimination, reinforcing exclusion. Residential segregation is widespread, with elites and middle class separated from migrant dominated slums. Rural hierarchies migrate with people reappearing in urban spaces. At the same time, new elites emerge in globalized cities, benefiting disproportionately from urban growth. Urban poverty is a defining feature of migration led growth. Migrants in slum often lack access to healthcare, education, sanitation, and clean water. Children are drawn into labor to supplement incomes, perpetuating exploitation. Poverty becomes intergenerational as lack of opportunity traps families. Migrants remain vulnerable to eviction, health crisis, and economic shocks. Targeted poverty alleviation through housing, education, and livelihood support is essential to break these cycles in cities. Migration reshapes identity and belonging. Migrants negotiate between rural traditions and urban expectations, often facing cultural dislocation. They may be stigmatized as outsiders in cities, struggling for acceptance. Second generation migrants develop hybrid identities, combining both rural and urban elements. These processes contribute to new forms of urban culture but also tensions. Identity politics emerges as migrants claim rights and recognition, challenging exclusionary practices. Indian policymakers have responded to urbanization through initiatives like the Smart Cities Mission, Housing for All, and urban health programs. Skill development initiatives aim to integrate migrants into labor markets. While these policies mark progress, they often fall short in implementation. Benefits tend to reach middle classes more than migrant workers. To be effective, urban policies must explicitly prioritize inclusion, rights, and services for migration communities who are central to the urban development of our newer cities and economy. Urbanization in India shares similarities with other rapidly developing countries like China and Brazil, particularly in scale and speed. However, African cities often urbanize without industrialization. Unlike India's experience, Latin America offers lessons in urban policy, including participatory planning and slum upgrading. Global South cities collectively face challenges of inequality, informality, and environmental stress. India's demographic The future of urbanization in India is marked by rapid growth. Projections suggest over 600 million people will live in cities in coming decades. Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities will expand fastest, absorbing much of its growth. Technology and smart governance promises better management, though sustainability remains a challenge. Migration will play a pivotal role in shaping urban futures, driving labor markets, culture, and demographic trends. So, keeping in mind this background, policy making must ensure inclusion and sustainability of this workforce. In conclusion, urbanization and migration are transformative forces reshaping societies. Theories from functionalism to world systems have helped explain their causes and consequences. Urbanization brings both benefit to economic growth, opportunities, diversity, and challenges, also inequality, exclusion, and environmental stress. Migration reshapes families, health, and identity, creating new dynamics in cities. So, we need policies which prioritize their inclusivity, resilience, and sustainability to harness urbanization for equitable distribution of all the services. Thank you.